everybody. Welcome to our webinar on patchwork ethnography. We're so excited to have you here with us. My name is Saiba Varma. Good morning, and I'm an anthropologist at the University of California, San Diego, which is located on the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation. On behalf of the conference organizers, Alexia Arani, Gyokje Gunel, Katie Ulrich, Chika Watanabe, and myself, I want to welcome scholars and researchers from around the world to our webinar on patchwork ethnography. I see already that we have a few hundred people in the audience, which is so exciting. Just a quick note before I get into the introduction, please turn on your subtitles if you would like to see the live captioning. The introduction will be about 10 to 15 minutes long. Sorry, I don't know why it's doing that. The introduction will be about 10 to 15 minutes long, and we won't have any time for questions, but feel free to message us if you have any technical or logistical issues. While our idea for patchwork ethnography emerged before the pandemic, for many of us, the multiple crises of the last year and a half have crystallized and made explicit many challenges that ethnographers have been negotiating for a long time. The prolonged pandemic and lockdown have demonstrated how we have always been doing patchwork ethnography. At the broadest level, we understand patchwork as provoking a conversation about ourselves as researchers, the field and field work, between our research subjects and ourselves, between ourselves and those with whom we share spaces and lives, such as family, partners, friends, and co-workers, and between the field and home, particularly as our own life trajectories as researchers are interrupted or disrupted by a range of forces, from the pandemic to managing houselessness and academic precarity, to the multiple intersecting and conflicting personal and professional commitments that characterize our lives. While acknowledging these multiple constraints, patchwork maintains a commitment to the relational work that is at the heart of ethnographic research. In hosting this webinar, one of our goals is to legitimize so-called non-traditional ethnographic methods and insights that do not stem from a particular research topic, but from the circumstances of a researcher's life. For example, if we can accept ethnographers using communication technologies and online research due to the pandemic, can we also accept ethnographers who choose those methods because they may have disabilities, caring responsibilities, or because they are precariously employed? How do these so-called non-traditional methods then bear on the kinds of relationships we are able to develop with our interlocutors? For those of you who may be sitting on less than perfect field notes or fieldwork, we hope the next 2 days can offer methodological approaches that open up data that might not otherwise look and feel like data, that patchwork might offer a way of rereading and reflecting, of unwinding or rewinding what is in our field notes after the fact. We hope the webinar will also provide a useful way of making the seams visible, encouraging us to be more explicit about the moves of contextualization, decontextualization that we make in our ethnographies, how we extract data, how we move between field site and home, when those distinctions blur and to what effect, and to the invisible editorial decisions we make when we refine our experiences into writing. All of these are the seams that are usually tucked away, left out of our ethnographies. Yet over the next 2 days, we will explore what can happen if we open them up. What new analytical or theoretical insights might they yield? How might ethnography itself be transformed? The presenters who you will hear from all remain committed to the slow, deep ethnographic knowledge of a particular context, but they also offer more expansive ways of thinking about ethnography and research itself. We hope the challenges you will hear about will resonate with you and with what you may yourself have experienced, and help you feel less isolated and alone in your struggles. At the same time, the papers also powerfully show us that patchwork does not only come out of scarcity and limitations, it's also about celebrating our strengths. Many of us have learned to make the patchiness of our presence and data meaningful We have found ways to do a lot with a little. Over the next 2 days, we hope to acknowledge this immense and often invisible labor and to find pleasure in ethnographic practices that color outside the lines. A brief overview of what you can expect over the next 2 days. So we will have a total of 3 panels today and 2 tomorrow. Our goal for the next 2 days is both to inspire and challenge, to offer our audience ways to collectively move forward after a period in which many of us have felt stuck or unmoored. We hope that whatever stage of research you might be at, whether conceptualizing your project, reviewing field notes, returning to research, or writing up, that it may feel a little less intimidating. With Patchwork, we hope you will feel ready to begin again.
Great. My name is Chika Watanabe. I'm a senior lecturer of social anthropology at the University of Manchester. I'm a Japanese woman. I have long black hair and I'm wearing a white and pink cotton shirt. So in the next few slides, we'll go over the themes from the event today and tomorrow. And we're just going to raise some questions that can get you thinking about some of the themes that the papers will address. So panel 1, familial entanglements. How can patchwork ethnography help us see the intersecting responsibilities of family and work, not as limitations, but as possibilities? How can we make our intersecting responsibilities not only acceptable, but a strength in the eyes of funders and employers? How do we recognize the blurriness between personal and academic lives, but also protect that division to fight the prevalence of overwork culture? Panel 2, the theme is sensory and affective attentions. If long-term fieldwork immerses us in daily routines, what happens to ethnographic knowledge and sensory practices when that routine is gone? In what ways does patchwork ethnography demand or enact a different politics of listening and attention? How do the sometimes violent collapses of life events and fieldwork register or not register institutionally, but also affectively and relationally? And I'm sure a lot of the papers will be rich and will probably go beyond the questions we're posing. But for panel 2, we also have a performance by Gustavo Valdivia and his Sonic Melting Collective, where he's been doing ethnographic and film and sound research that captures the sound of melting ice in the Andes and Peru. Panel 3 is on temporalities. How can patchwork ethnography help us rethink the ideal of long-term fieldwork? How do we write with broken timelines? How does patchwork ethnography shed light on the ways that the past, personal, historical, and other haunts our present experiences of fieldwork? Long-term fieldwork is not part of all anthropological orthodoxies. How does patchwork ethnography fit into a global archive of research practices? And as part of this panel, we'll have a performance by Lisa Grandia, or Professor Canary, where you'll see what it means for the personal, the political, the academic, all of that blurring into one.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gökçe Günel. I'm an assistant professor of anthropology at Rice University. I'm a Turkish woman with long brown hair and brown eyes, and I'm wearing a white shirt. So on day 2, we're going to start with opening remarks from Denlon Rutherford, who's president of Wenner-Gren Foundation. Some of the questions that Denlon Rutherford is going to address include: how can we use patchwork ethnography to challenge existing models for funding research in anthropology and related disciplines? How could we re-envision funding proposals, possibly reformatting the documents that constitute anthropological expertise? On our panel 4, which is focusing on collaboration and activism, we've also asked related questions. What kinds of relations become possible through patchwork, such as with research assistants or other collaborators? How do we maintain relationships with our interlocutors across distances and interrupted temporalities? How can patchwork ethnography enable a slowing down, a resistance against the impetus to produce more, and instead orient us towards goals outside the neoliberal academy? Our last panel is entitled Interrogating Authority. And the questions we ask in this panel include, how can methods and theories of patchwork ethnography acknowledge the various forms of precarity that structure academic life today? How do we theorize patchwork without entrenching the problematic conditions of labor in the university? And how do we make the disruptions and constraints that characterize ethnographic research visible in our analysis and writing? This panel also included a performance by Nancy Francis, but this performance has been canceled due to a strike that's happening at the University of Liverpool, where Nancy Francis is at. But please stay on for the performance slot. We're going to be showing a video that Nancy Francis made available to us, and which hopefully will be enlightening for all of us. So I'm going to briefly describe the logistics of the webinar before we close this session. And please, if you have any questions about the logistics of the webinar, feel free to send us messages on chat, and we will try to keep up with those messages as the webinar is going on. Each panel is going to be 1 hour and 15 minutes. So the papers are, we've asked our presenters to keep their papers relatively short, so only 10-minute papers. And after the 4 papers in each panel, we're gonna have a 30 to 35-minute Q&A session. We'll have 15-minute breaks between each panel. And during these breaks, we're going to be doing some backstage work. So if you stay on, and you can feel free to watch us do that, but you can also feel free to step away and get a glass of water during these breaks. Please don't forget the performances. So at the end of the Q&A sessions, we're going to have the performances as separate sort of sessions, but they are related to the whole theme of the conference, and they're related to the panels that they're attached to. So hopefully they'll be provocative, and they'll give you new food for thought. So we have ASL interpretation and live captioning throughout the 2 days of presentations. Please turn on your live captions if you haven't already, and if you need them, or if they're helpful for you. And we're also able to share with you the texts and the PowerPoints for the presentations if you need them. Please send us a message on chat. We don't want to make them available all at once, but if you need them, we're more than happy to provide them to you. Please follow us on Twitter if you don't already, because we're going to be live tweeting the event, and you can follow, even if you're not able to attend every presentation. Hopefully you will be able to get a sense of what's going on at the webinar even when you're away. So please follow us on Twitter. Saiba, Chika, and I also would like to thank several people and organizations who've been very helpful in who this webinar would not be possible without them. So Katie Ulrich at Rice University, Alexia Arani at UC San Diego, Addison Verger at Rice University, our workshop participants for our Wenner-Gren workshop, Nightingale Interpreting Services based in Houston, Texas, Rice University, and Wenner-Gren Foundation for Anthropological Research. So we thank all of them very much, and we look forward to hearing all the presentations today and tomorrow. Thank you so much for being here. So we're going to end this session now, and please be back here in 15 minutes, and we're going to be starting our first panel. Thank you.